You've been lying to yourself. That's the first truth you need to swallow. You tell yourself you're patient. You tell yourself you trust the process. But the second your phone lights up and it's not their name, the second you don't see instant progress, your chest tightens, your mood drops, and you spiral into doubt. That's not trust. That's desperation wearing a mask. And here's the gut punch: desperation is the fastest way to kill attraction. Nothing bleeds through stronger than neediness. You think you're hiding it, but every text, every glance, every pause in conversation leaks your insecurity like a crack in glass. Let me make this crystal clear. In life, in relationships, in your own mental game, you don't get to demand instant results. You don't get to dictate the timeline of attraction. You don't get to control how fast someone leans in or pulls away. And yet, here you are, measuring every pause, every emoji, every word like it's a stock chart. That's not love. That's obsession. That's self-sabotage disguised as caring. Attraction isn't built in microwave minutes. Here's the brutal psychology: the human brain craves certainty, but attraction thrives in uncertainty. You're wired to chase validation because dopamine loves quick hits. That's why you keep checking your phone. That's why you replay conversations in your head like a broken record. But the paradox is this: the very act of seeking certainty is the thing that makes you unattractive. Think about it. Nobody finds neediness sexy. Nobody wants to be around someone who clings like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. And yet, that's how you've been showing up. Not confident, not grounded, just panicked, hoping the process will give you the shortcut you're secretly begging for. But there are no shortcuts here. Attraction isn't a transaction. It's not a button you press, not a script you memorize, not a hack you pull from some TikTok guru. It's a slow burn. It's tension. It's space. It's earned, not demanded. Harsh truth. For one, you don't trust the process because you don't trust yourself. Let's strip it down. You're impatient not because the process is flawed, but because deep down you don't believe you're enough. If you did, you wouldn't be counting the minutes between texts like a lab rat pushing a dopamine lever. You wouldn't obsess over whether someone likes you back. You'd know your value doesn't vanish just because they don't reply fast enough. Your inability to trust the process is a mirror of your inability to trust yourself. You can't sit with the silence because silence feels like rejection, and rejection feels like proof that you're unworthy. That's the lie you've been rehearsing for years, and it's time you burn it to the ground. Relationships are emotional chess, not checkers. Let's get real about dynamics. Every relationship, romantic, social, professional, runs on unspoken rules of power and energy. You already know this, even if you don't admit it. The person who's calmer usually holds the frame. The person who's less reactive usually controls the pace. The person who doesn't need the interaction ends up becoming the one who's most desired. That's not manipulation. That's human psychology. We're drawn to those who radiate stability, who act like their world doesn't collapse if someone walks away, who live as if rejection is just data, not death. So when you lose your cool, when you start forcing outcomes, when you refuse to trust the process, you hand over your power. You shrink yourself. You become the chaser. And here's the bitter pill: chasing doesn't inspire attraction. It repels it. People don't fall in love with hunters. They fall in love with anchors. Harsh truth. 2. You think time is the enemy, but time is the filter you've been telling yourself. I can't wait. I'll lose them if I don't act now. Wrong. Time doesn't kill attraction. Time reveals it. If someone is truly drawn to you, time only sharpens that pull. If they're not, then every second you invest in forcing it is wasted. Impatience is your fear screaming louder than your logic. You've been trained by instant gratification: swipe, click, like. Match that. Results should be immediate. But real attraction isn't Tinder dopamine. It's not YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. It's slow. It's layered. It's a storm that brews over time. You don't trust the process because you're terrified of what the process might reveal. Maybe they're not the one. Maybe they'll drift. Maybe they'll choose someone else. But here's the secret: you should want that information. That's not loss. That's clarity. That's you discovering faster who's truly aligned with your life and who's dead weight. The process is brutal because it's honest. Every emotional process, healing, attraction, personal growth, has one job: to strip away your illusions. The illusion that you can control how fast someone falls for you. The illusion that love is earned by proving yourself. The illusion that silence means rejection. The process breaks you because it forces you to confront your own chaos. It demands you grow in the very places you want shortcuts. And if you resist it, you stay stuck in the loop. Same behaviors, same mistakes, same heartbreaks over and over. This is why you have to stop begging for speed and start building tolerance. Tolerance for silence, tolerance for discomfort, tolerance for uncertainty. That's where your power is forged. Small mindset shift. Delay is not defeat. Here's the pivot. Every time you feel the urge to check your phone, to overanalyze, to push for reassurance, stop. Tell yourself delay is not defeat. Attraction isn't vanishing just because it's quiet. Value isn't shrinking just because it's not confirmed right now. Delay is the space where respect grows, where tension builds, where your self-control communicates louder than your words. If you can own the delay, you own the dynamic. Final slap of truth. You don't need another dating hack. You don't need to memorize lines. You don't need to overthink the silence. What you need is to finally shut down the panic in your own head. Because if you can't trust the process, you'll destroy every process before it matures. So here's your challenge. Stop begging for certainty. Start building resilience. Sit with the silence. Let the time stretch. Trust yourself enough to trust the process. Because the second you stop trying to control everything, you finally become the kind of person who doesn't need to. And that's when they come closer. Not before. You've been sold a lie about relationships. They told you if you say the right things, act the right way, keep the vibe high, then attraction is automatic. They told you there's a formula, a checklist, a straight line from hello to happily ever after. That's garbage. Relationships don't follow linear logic. Attraction is not a formula. It's chaos mixed with psychology. It's fragile, volatile, and it bends to unspoken dynamics that most people never notice. And here's the slap. You keep breaking the dynamic because you refuse to surrender control. Control is the enemy of attraction. Let's put it under a microscope. The second you try to control someone's perception of you, you lose authenticity. And authenticity is the oxygen of attraction. Without it, everything suffocates. You do it without even realizing it. Overthinking your texts, crafting your perfect response, pretending to be laid back when your stomach is in knots. That's control. That's manipulation born of insecurity. And here's the truth, people feel it. Not in word, but in vibe. They sense when you're filtering yourself. They sense when your smile is too rehearsed. They sense when your laughter is a little too forced. Attraction thrives on congruence, not perfection. It grows when your word, your body language, and your energy align. And the process is meant to test that alignment. But instead of passing the test, you keep trying to cheat it, and then you wonder why it collapses. Our harsh truth number 3. The more you chase, the less they respect you. Let's talk raw power dynamics. Relationships aren't 50-50 in attraction phases. They're fluid. They swing like a pendulum. One day you're in control of the frame. The next day they are. That's natural. But what kills the swing over chasing? Chasing isn't just blowing up their phone. Chasing is emotional. It's the subtle begging for attention, the constant proving, the hidden anxiety that screams louder than your words. And every ounce of chasing bleeds away your respect in their eyes. Respect isn't optional in attraction. Without respect, there's no polarity. Without polarity, there's no spark. And without the spark, you're just friends. Or worse, you're invisible. The emotional self-control, the hidden currency of attraction. Here's the psychology you don't want to hear. Attraction isn't about looks alone. It's not about charm alone. It's not even about shared values in the early stages. It's about emotional regulation. People are magnetized to those who regulate their emotions under pressure. Why? Because it signals safety. It signals power. It signals resilience. When you don't flinch at silence, when you don't react to delays, when you don't explode at mixed signals, you project something rare, self-mastery. That's what makes someone lean in. Not your desperation to fix things, not your impatience, not your panic, your stillness. And this is why trusting the process matters. Because every pause, every delay, every gap in attention is not a threat. It's a stage where you show whether you're grounded or fragile, Whether you crumble or hold, whether you're just another needy voice in their inbox or someone who radiates authority over their own emotions. Chuck of the paradox of space. Let me hammer this in. The less space you allow, the less attraction you create. It feels backward, I know. Your brain screams. Close the gap. Make it safe. Reassure them. But psychology says otherwise. Humans crave tension. We crave uncertainty in small doses. It's what keeps us intrigued. Too much certainty kills attraction. Too much predictability suffocates desire. That's why long-term couples often lose spark. They erase all mystery. In the early stages, you crush attraction by filling every silence, by demanding reassurance, by clinging instead of allowing. Space is oxygen. Space is firewood. Without it, nothing burns. Here's harsh truth. Here 4. You don't want love, you want relief. This is going to sting. Most of what you call love isn't love. It's a desperate hunger for relief from your own emptiness. You don't want them, you want the version of yourself you imagine when they approve of you. That's not attraction. That's addiction. You're using them like a drug, hoping their validation will fix the gaping hole in your self-esteem. But here's the kicker, that hole doesn't close. Not with more attention, not with more reassurance, not with more texts. The only fix is self-validation. Until you learn how to ground yourself, every relationship you touch will rot under the weight of your need. You won't trust the process because you're not built to. You'll demand faster results because you can't survive in the silence. And that's exactly why the silence keeps coming back to break you until you finally face it. Book the frame game. Let's shift gears into attraction dynamics. In every interaction, there's a frame. A frame is the invisible context that dictates who leads and who follows. And here's the truth. Whoever holds the stronger frame dictates the emotional climate of the interaction. If you're anxious, you're letting them hold the frame. If you're reactive, you're letting them hold the frame. If you're chasing, you're handing them the frame on a silver platter. And frames aren't about words. They're about vibe. Someone with a strong frame can say almost nothing and still command presence. Someone with a weak frame can say all the right lines and still feel forgettable. So when you rush the process, you're not just being impatient, you're surrendering your frame. You're broadcasting. I don't trust myself. I don't trust the timing. I don't trust that I'm enough. And nobody is drawn to that energy. Small mindset shift. Attraction is tested, not taken. Here's your pivot for this section. Stop thinking you take attraction. You don't take it, you prove worthy of it through tests. Every silence is a test. Every delay is a test. Every moment you feel insecure is a test. Failing the test looks like overreacting, pushing, proving, or chasing. Passing the test looks like composure, calm, and trust. That's it. Not tricks, not games, just emotional maturity on display. And here's the beauty: every time you pass a test, your stock rises. Every time you trust the process, you separate yourself from the sea of desperate, reactive people who fail daily. Final slap of truth. Let's end this section with another punch to the gut. Attraction doesn't disappear because of silence. It disappears because of your panic inside the silence. It's not them pulling away that ruins the dynamic. It's you collapsing when they do. It's not their delay that destroys respect. It's your inability to regulate yourself during the delay. So here's the challenge: start seeing every silence as your audition. Start treating every delay as your chance to prove you're different. And the next time your chest tightens, the next time your thumb hovers over that desperate text, remember, trusting the process is not optional. It's the only way you win. You think attraction is a straight line. You think it moves forward, 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 until the deal is sealed. But the truth: attraction is not linear. It's rhythmic. It's push and pull. It's expansion and contraction. It's hot, then cold, then hot again. And if you don't understand this dance, you'll keep blowing up every chance you get. The rhythm of desire. Let's strip this down to behavior analysis. Human attraction works on cycles. Someone leans in, they show interest. Then, almost inevitably, they lean back. Not because they lost interest, but because that's how the brain tests safety and novelty. You panic when they pull back, don't you? You assume the game is over. You assume you're rejected. So you chase. You push harder. You try to fix what isn't broken. And right there, you kill the natural rhythm. You flatten what should have been a dance into a desperate tug-of-war. And nothing kills desire faster than tug-of-war energy. I'm on Wesh Harsh Truth number 5. Their pullback isn't rejection, it's a test. Every pullback is your exam. And 99% of people fail. Why do they pull back? Sometimes it's to breathe. Sometimes it's to see if your interest is genuine or if you'll crumble under pressure. Sometimes it's unconscious self-protection. Our brains are wired to fear intimacy even as we crave it. When they pull back, your reaction writes the script. If you panic, you prove you're unstable. If you smother, you prove you're needy. If you collapse, you prove you're fragile. But if you stay grounded, if you hold your frame, if you show that your world doesn't spin out of orbit just because they took 2 steps back, that's when attraction deepens. Because you've shown emotional strength, you've shown trust, you've shown patience. Honakulij, Wanu attraction is tension. Let's hit you with another uncomfortable truth. Attraction is built in the gap, not in the closeness. That gap, the uncertainty, the waiting, the tension is where desire ferments. It's where longing grows. And you keep killing it with your rush for closure. Think about it. Why do movies build tension before the kiss? Why do stories drag out the reveal? Because tension is what makes the payoff explosive. Without it, the moment falls flat. In your relationships, you've been trying to fast forward through the movie. You want the kiss in scene 1. You want the climax without the buildup. And that's why your connections fizzle. You never let tension do its job. Harsh truth. 6. Your need for certainty is killing attraction. Let's talk psychology. The brain is addicted to novelty. We're wired to pay attention to what feels unpredictable. That's why the person who's too available, too consistent, too predictable loses spark. And that's your problem. You crave certainty more than connection. You demand constant validation. You force clarity before it's ready. And every time you do, you rob the other person of novelty. You strip away the excitement. You become predictable. And predictable is boring. So stop pretending your need for certainty is about love. It's about control. It's about fear. It's about your inability to sit with uncertainty. And that inability is why you never get what you want. The psychology of push-pull. Push-pull isn't a game. It's the natural law of attraction. When you're too close, people push away. When you're too far, people pull closer. The dynamic lives in the balance. The trick isn't to manufacture fake push-pull. The trick is to manage yourself when it happens naturally. To understand that a little distance isn't disaster, it's fuel. To let people miss you instead of panicking that they will forget you. That gap between pushes and pulls is where longing grows. And longing is the backbone of attraction. Without longing, you're just another option on their phone. With longing, you become the person they can't stop thinking about. Emotional gravity. Here's where behavior analysis gets interesting. Every person carries emotional gravity. Some people pull others into their orbit with calm, confidence, and mystery. Others repel with chaos, neediness, and overexposure. Which one are you, if you're honest? You're probably more repellent than magnetic right now. Not because you're unworthy, but because your actions scream instability. Attraction doesn't survive instability. People want to be pulled in, not shoved. Your job is to build gravity. And gravity is built through restraint. Through letting space exist without rushing to fill it. Through allowing others to lean in instead of constantly leaning on them. Small mindset shift. Silence is signal, not sabotage. Here's your pivot for this section. Stop interpreting silence as sabotage. Stop reading pullbacks as proof you're being rejected. Start seeing them as signals. When someone leans back, it's not an ending, it's data. Data about how they test connection. Data about how they regulate intimacy. Data about how you react under pressure. Your job isn't to panic. Your job is to listen, to observe, to adjust, and above all, to regulate yourself so you don't blow up the dynamic before it matures. The brutal irony? Here's the kicker. You keep saying you want deep connection. You keep saying you want someone to really see you. But the second the rhythm of attraction challenges you, you self-destruct. You want closeness, but you're not built for it because you've never trained yourself to survive the push-pull. You crave love, but you can't tolerate the very dynamics that create love. That's why trusting the process isn't just a cliche. It's the only way to rewire yourself. If you can't trust the rhythm, you can't have the dance. To a final slap of truth. Here's how we end this section. Attraction isn't killed by distance. It's killed by your reaction to distance. It's not the silence that ruins things. It's your meltdown inside the silence. It's not their pullback that pushes them away. It's your inability to hold steady when they do. So here's the challenge. Let the rhythm breathe. Stop trying to drag people forward when they need to lean back. Stop panicking at the pauses. Stop demanding certainty when tension is the point. If you want them to lean in, you have to prove you can handle the lean back. That's how the process works. That's the dance you keep failing. And until you learn to trust it, you'll never make it past the first verse. Because you don't see reality. You see your own projections. You see what you want to see. You see signals that don't exist, and you miss the ones that matter. And then you wonder why every connection you touch turns toxic. The truth is simple. You're blind to emotional triggers. You're deaf to subconscious signals. You're fumbling in the dark while convincing yourself you're reading the vibe. And this blindness, it's killing your relationships. Attraction lives in the subconscious. Let's get psychological. Attraction isn't built in your conscious brain. It's not a checklist of qualities. It's not a PowerPoint presentation of pros and cons. Attraction is subconscious. It's raw. It's ancient. It's pattern recognition rooted in survival, not logic. That's why people fall for someone who doesn't make sense on paper. That's why you've been obsessed with people who were terrible for you. And that's why you can't fake attraction with words alone. The subconscious always wins. Here's the harsh truth when you don't trust the process. You start forcing attraction on the conscious level. You think clever texts, strategic responses, or perfect timing will tip the scales. But your subconscious signals leak louder than your words. Your anxiety leaks. Your neediness leaks. Your desperation leaks. And no amount of clever lines can cover it up. The harsh truth. Number 7. You mistake attention for interest. Let's break this down. Just because someone replies doesn't mean they're interested. Just because someone gives you attention doesn't mean they're invested. Attention is cheap. Interest is expensive. You confuse the two because you're starving for validation. You inflate small gestures into big promises. You take crumbs and build a feast in your imagination. And then, when reality doesn't match your fantasy, you crash. That crash isn't about them. It's about you. It's about your inability to regulate your hunger for approval. You don't want truth, you want comfort. And comfort is the fastest way to blind yourself. Emotional triggers, the hidden landmines. Here's where you keep stepping on grenades. Attraction triggers are small, subconscious cues that either ignite desire or extinguish it instantly. And you're constantly misfiring. Scarcity trigger. People value what feels rare. You flood them with availability. Mystery trigger. People crave discovery. You hand them your life story on date 1. Tension trigger. Desire needs resistance. You collapse the second you sense pushback. Respect trigger. People only respect what respects itself. You treat yourself like a bargain bin and expect full price. Every time you ignore these triggers, you send the wrong signal. And attraction isn't forgiving. You can recover from mistakes in logic, but subconscious signals. Once the brain files you as low value, it's almost impossible to rewire. Yet misreading signals destroys attraction. The human brain has mirror neurons. We pick up on emotional states without words. That's why you feel nervous when someone else is nervous. That's why someone's confidence can calm a room. So when you misread signals and overreact, your emotions broadcast instability. You think you're just clarifying. You think you're just checking in. But to the other person, you're screaming insecurity. And insecurity is a repellent stronger than bad looks, bad jokes, or bad timing. You want an example? Think of the last time someone demanded to know if you were upset when you weren't. Annoying. Right. They misread your vibe, projected their fear, and created a problem that wasn't there. That's you every time you misread silence, hesitation, or delay. Harsh truth. True weight. You're addicted to overinterpretation. Let's expose the addiction. You can't sit with uncertainty. So you start interpreting every microsignal. A 3-minute delay in texting disaster, a shorter response. Rejection, an emoji left out betrayal. That's not awareness, that's paranoia. And paranoia is the enemy of trust. When you overinterpret, you stop seeing the person, you only see your fears. You're not responding to them. You're reacting to the story in your head. And the cruel irony, that story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your fear of rejection creates behaviors that guarantee rejection. Plus, from emotional calibration, you're missing skill. What you lack is calibration. Calibration is the ability to read signals accurately without projecting your fear onto them. It's knowing when silence means I'm busy versus when it means I'm pulling away. It's knowing when distance is a test versus when it's disinterest. Most people can't calibrate because they're too emotional. They're hijacked by insecurity. They read signals through a fog of fear. And until you train yourself to regulate that fog, you'll always misread the room. Calibration requires composure. You can't measure the temperature of the room if you're the one overheating. Small mindset shift. Signals reveal them, not you. Here's your pivot. Stop making their behavior about you, their silence. It's about their mood, their life, their bandwidth, their hesitation. It's about their fears, their doubts, their patterns, their distance. It's about their psychology, not your worth. This doesn't mean ignore patterns. It means stop internalizing every signal as proof of your failure. The moment you detach your identity from their behavior, you see things clearly. You calibrate better. You stop bleeding insecurity onto neutral situations. Signals aren't mirrors of you, they're windows into them. Tamatsuwari, why trusting the process is the cure? Do you see it yet? The reason you misread signals is because you don't trust the process. You think everything is life or death. You treat every pause like an emergency. You inflate every signal because you don't trust the timeline to reveal the truth naturally. Trusting the process forces you to zoom out. It forces you to stop reacting to every micro move. It forces you to see the bigger arc of attraction instead of obsessing over the moment. And in that bigger arc, half the things you panic about don't even matter. Final slap of truth. Here's how we end this section. Your attraction failures don't come from bad luck. They don't come from not being attractive enough. They don't even come from choosing the wrong people. They come from your blindness, from your addiction to misreading signals, from your inability to sit still long enough to see what's actually happening. So here's the challenge. Stop projecting. Stop overinterpreting. Stop making every signal about you. Learn to calibrate. Learn to detach. Learn to trust that the process will reveal the truth without you forcing it. Because until you stop fighting ghosts in your own head, you'll never see the real person standing in front of you. You've been waiting for the world to save you. You've been hoping love would fix you. You've been clinging to relationships like life rafts, praying someone else's presence would silence the storm in your head. But here's the unfiltered truth: no one is coming to save you. And that's exactly why you need to trust the process. Because the process isn't about them. It's about you. The real battlefield is your mind. Stop lying to yourself. Your biggest enemy isn't their silence. It isn't their mixed signals. It isn't rejection. Your biggest enemy is your inability to regulate your own damn mind. Every meltdown you've had came from the same place: fear running wild, unchecked, eating you alive. And what do? You medicate that fear with chasing, overanalyzing, obsessing, demanding. You numb yourself with control. And every time you do, you kill the very thing you were desperate to keep alive. So let's cut through the noise. If you don't master your own emotions, you'll sabotage every relationship you touch. Period. Harsh truth. Number 9. They're not leaving you. You're pushing them away. You think people keep abandoning you. That's the story you tell yourself, isn't it? They always leave. They always lose interest. People don't stick around for me. Wrong. They're not leaving you. You're pushing them away. With your panic, with your demands, with your inability to sit in the discomfort of uncertainty. Nobody wants to be around someone who collapses every time reality doesn't bend to their will. Nobody wants to carry the weight of your validation needs on their back. And that's what you've been doing, turning attraction into obligation. And obligation kills desire. Or the rebirth of self-trust. So how do you fix it? You rebuild trust where it always should have been inside yourself. Trusting the process means trusting you. Trusting that you can handle rejection without crumbling. Trusting that you can survive silence without spiraling. Trusting that you can stay grounded when emotions spike. That's the shift. You don't chase because you don't need to. You don't panic because you don't break. You don't demand certainty because you already carry certainty within yourself. And that's when attraction transforms. Because people feel it. They feel the difference between someone who needs them to breathe and someone who breathes just fine on their own. Respect is the real aphrodisiac. Forget what you've been told. Attraction isn't about looks alone. It isn't about charm alone. It isn't about chemistry in some magical sense. At its core, attraction is about respect. Respect for yourself. Respect for your boundaries. Respect for your time. Respect for your value. When you trust the process, you radiate respect. You stop begging. You stop proving. You stop bending. And that self-respect becomes magnetic. Because people respect what respects itself. And people are drawn to those who don't cheapen their own worth. The cycle you must break. Here's the pattern you've been trapped in. 1. You meet someone. 2. You get excited. 3. You start projecting fantasies. 4. They pull back as everyone naturally does. 5. You panic. 6. You chase. 7. Respect dies. 8. Attraction collapses. Then you repeat it. Again and again. The only way out is to break the cycle. And the only way to break the cycle is to rewire your mind to embrace silence. Embrace space. Embrace the process. You don't break it by working harder. You don't break it by learning more tips. You break it by becoming someone who doesn't collapse when reality tests them. Dear Wong, small mindset shift. The process is the attraction. Here's the final pivot. The process isn't the obstacle. It is the attraction, the waiting, the silence, the rhythm, the push-pull that's not something to get through. That's the fire that forges desire. When you rush it, you kill it. When you mistrust it, you suffocate it. When you let it unfold, you feed it. The process itself is the proof that you're worth pursuing, that they're worth pursuing, and that respect exists on both sides. Harsh truth. 10. You've been your own worst enemy. It's not bad luck. It's not the wrong people. It's you, your impatience, your projection, your addiction to certainty, your fear of silence. You've been your own saboteur, setting fire to every bridge you cross. That's the hardest truth to swallow, but it's also the most liberating. Because if you're the problem, you're also the solution. If you've been the one wrecking the process, then you can also be the one to finally trust it. That's power. That's ownership. Chuck's the transformation. Imagine this version of you, someone who doesn't flinch when the phone stays quiet, someone who smiles at silence instead of panicking, someone who treats delays as normal, not as betrayal, someone who radiates calm because they know their value doesn't rise and fall with another person's attention. That version of you commands attraction. That version of you flips the dynamic without effort. That version of you doesn't need to chase, doesn't need to beg, doesn't need to collapse, because they trust. They trust themselves. They trust the process. Gruffy Yikirm final slap of truth. So here's where we close. You want the love, the respect, the deep connection you've been chasing. Stop chasing. Stop panicking. Stop sabotaging. Trust the process. Not because it's easy. Not because it guarantees a happy ending, but because the process is the only thing standing between the old, desperate version of you and the powerful, grounded version you were meant to become. Trust the process, or keep losing to the chaos in your own head. The choice is yours.